The confetti has been cleaned up. Everyone celebrated, and now it's time to get ready for the Super Bowl, Rube.
Yeah, and it's going to get here quick. And this first week is kind of fun, and everybody just kind of build up the excitement and build up the vibe and the atmosphere. I think a lot of people from Philly are going to go down. I know a bunch of people that aren't even going to the game; they're just going to New Orleans to be a part of it. So it's going to be this week is fun, and the next week's going to be crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way it goes. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. I know everyone's excited about daily pods. That will come next week once we get to New Orleans. We're both getting there Sunday. We'll be there all week. So daily pods once we get there.
Yeah, we'll start Monday. And yeah, can't wait.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to it. Looking forward to getting down there. It's kind of crazy the season the Eagles have had so far. And before we get into a bunch of stuff today, we're going to talk about some of the coolest stories on this team this year. We'll look at the turnover margin. I know you're writing about that and how kind of crazy that's been recently. We have a bunch of questions to answer. We want to talk about Nick Sirianni in depth today, but just the fact that the Eagles are back in the Super Bowl 2 times in 3 years, it's really special. Something you said to me today before we planned this pod even kind of stuck with me. You're like, you covered 1 Super Bowl in your first, 30 years on the beat. And now here you are covering 3 in 8 years. This is an amazing stretch for this franchise.
Yeah. And I don't know, we haven't really had a chance to step back and kind of look at the big picture, but great franchises are the ones that go to, like the Eagles went 04 and they went to a bunch of NFC championship games, but they kind of underachieved as a team. They went to 1 Super Bowl during that whole stretch. The great teams keep going back, and 3 in 8 years is rare. I actually just made a list of teams that have been to 3 in 8 years. There's 11 of them, but you're talking about just the great franchises in NFL history, the Patriots with Belichick and the Steelers, during their great run in the 70s. And there's the Packers never did it. Packers never went to 3 Super Bowls in 8 years. You think about some of the great franchises. The Bears never did it. These franchises have been around for 100 years. So it's rare. It's especially rare around here. This is the greatest period of success this franchise has had. Obviously, in the 1940s, they won a couple titles, but it really is when you take a moment and just kind of take a step back. And they won a Super Bowl in 17. They went to 1 in 22, and now they're at another one. I mean, that's remarkable stuff. And you've got to be a special franchise to have that kind of sustained success. I was writing about Dallas Goedert. He got drafted in 18. He's been in the playoffs all but 1 year of his career. And that was Doug's last year. But it's a remarkable stretch of success. And it's not over yet.
Yeah, the amazing thing about the way it's all happened is these are 3 very different teams. Obviously, this time it's the same quarterback, same head coach, so a lot of it's the same. But, I think the mark of a good organization is being able to win in different ways and just maintaining a level of play no matter what happens. We saw that with the Patriots, certainly in their run. We've seen that now with the Chiefs. And the Eagles are doing that to a degree. Now you have to finish. You want to see them win the Super Bowl and have 2 in 8 years. That's a heck of an accomplishment. But just getting there is pretty unreal. I mean, I grew up in this area as an Eagles fan, and I remember my childhood was a little bleak. I mean, I grew up in the lean years. I missed the early. I was alive, but I kind of missed the early 90s. So my first football recollection, it was ugly. And to see this, obviously had the Andy Reid years, and that was special. And they were a great team, but this is the most impressive stretch of Eagles football of my life. And I know the lives of, just about everyone who's been watching them.
Well, when you think about the history of the franchise, they win the title in 1960 at Franklin Field on a Monday. Then they don't win another postseason game until Vermeil's here almost 20 years later. And then after Vermeil, from 80, they don't win another playoff game. They win a wild card game in 92, a wild card game in 95. And that's it from 80 until Andy in 2000. So 2 wild card games in 20 years. And that's not that long ago. And certainly there was no sense that either of those teams was going to make any kind of deep run. I mean, fans were just thrilled that they won a wild card game those couple of years. And then starting in 2000, it's just been, pretty much every year they've been in the playoffs. And I think I mentioned this on the pod the other night. Since 2000, they've had one fewer Super Bowl trip than losing seasons. 5 losing seasons, 4 Super Bowl trips. And I'll tell you what, I think next year they're more likely to go back to the Super Bowl than have a losing season. You never know what's going to happen. But this is just a franchise that's been around since the 1930s as in enjoying its greatest sustained success right now. And it's just such an exciting time to be an Eagles fan.
Yeah, that's a long way to say, don't take this for granted, because it doesn't happen like this. I mean, to see this, who knows when it'll end and how it'll end, but enjoy the ride while you're on it.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a topic for, look, they have the youngest defense in football. Jalen's 26. He's 26. You think about everything he's done. They got a lot of their, I'd say most of their offensive guys under contract and a good chunk of their defense under contract. It's hard to keep winning year after year, but I don't think they're going to go away. It doesn't mean they're going to the Super Bowl every year, but they're going to be a good team for quite a while. They got the owner and the GM and the coach and the quarterback. And if you have those things, you have a chance to really keep winning and keep the thing going.
I want to talk about the coach today, Nick Sirianni. We've both said this before, but it's time to give him that contract extension. Next year will be his final year under contract. You're not going to let him go into a lame duck year. He just got you back to the Super Bowl for the second time in 3 years. It's time to pay the man, time to make sure he stays here long term. Early this season, you and I, we talked about how everything this year was looking through the lens of whether or not Nick was going to keep his job. And that was just the way it was set up. And that was set up by Jeffrey Lurie. We knew how long it took them after the end of the 2023 season to decide that Nick was coming back and what the plan was going to be moving forward. They can look at you and tell you that they weren't going to fire Nick, but it was clearly in the thought process was whether or not they'd bring him back. And then the way the season started, they're 2-2. It didn't look great. We were on this podcast saying, man, we don't think they'd fire Nick in the season, but if it keeps going like this, there's no way he'll be back for 2025. Now here we are a few months later. They're in the Super Bowl. It's time to give Nick Sirianni his flowers.
Yeah, I think it was a few weeks into that 10-game winning streak when we just said, you know what? The conversation has shifted from is he going to get fired to when's he getting that new contract? How about Jeff Lurie giving him the contract in New Orleans next week? How about if he announces that on media day, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's not really any kind of rush, but
no, but all the media in the world will be there. Just a thought. I could see Jeff doing that, but it's going to come if he wants to stay. Maybe he wants to become a free agent, but there's so much stability in this organization, and that's something Jeff Lurie's really, really big on is stability. And I mean, heck, he kept Andy for 14 years, probably a year too long. Howie's been GM since 2010, other than 1 year when he was in charge of masking tape in 15. But you look at it, there's just been so much stability since he bought the team, and I think that's a really healthy place to be.
Yeah, and you look at Nick Sirianni, and he's been, he's a polarizing figure. He is, and I understand why he is, because he can have a grating personality if you're watching him from afar. He, some of the antics, I understand why they rub people the wrong way, whether he's yelling at a fan or
just the faces he makes. Yeah,
just the faces alone. You're right. So I understand why the national perception is that this guy's just a pest. He's not even really coaching this team. It's not true, but I understand where the perception comes from. It's with him though. You have to understand the good things he does too, and there's a ton of them. You look at the culture setting aspect of this. Now, 2023 did not go well, and I think a lot of that has to fall on him. But to see where this team is this year, it's been really impressive.
Yeah, I think the things that he's doing now, he's really good at. So they finally figured out exactly what he's good at, and he's in charge of those things, and they're important things. they're more important or just as important as play calling, which he's not good at. I think he's so good at getting players to understand their roles, to buy into those roles, whether it's the last guy on the roster or the, starting quarterback, last guy in the practice squad even. We've seen those guys come up and help out. He gets guys to embrace whatever role they have, and he gets guys to believe in the team first, which we've seen every week. He gets guys to buy into the culture and the work ethic and the connecting, which people might scoff at or laugh at, but the players take it really seriously, and it means a lot to them. And they do it and they live it and they talk about it all the time. All these things make the whole group stronger, make the team stronger. They play for each other, which is, I think, the most dangerous team is a team that the guys are playing for each other and for the group instead of for themselves and their own stats. He gets guys to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. These are all really, really important things, and things that I think are really difficult to do for a coach in this age, maybe in any age. He's really good at those things. And you mentioned the culture setting. I mean, these guys, Saquon came here because he knew he had a chance to win, and that's because of Nick. And who knows where this team would be without Saquon? But I think the things he's doing now, he's just really exceptional at.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the questions, the question before the season was like, well, what's Nick going to do? Because he's not obviously in charge of the defense. He's not in charge of the offense. So, like, what's he doing? And there are other CEO coaches, but when they were hired, they were kind of hired to be CEO type coaches. This was different because they were kind of, in a way, stripping a lot of his power offensively away from him and giving it to Kellen Moore. I give him a lot of credit. I think it takes humility to do that. Obviously, there's some self-preservation involved, which I don't think is a bad trade either. You get one of these jobs, you try to keep one of these jobs. There's only 32 of them. But at a lot of turns this year, like, Nick's been showing humility, right? Like, you think back to 21 where he gives up play calling and then they go with this run heavy system instead. Like, that was the first time we saw it from him, the humility that makes him a good coach. But now we saw it this year too, because it took a lot for him to hand over the keys to Kellen Moore like he did.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. And I think the players see it, and I think they appreciate it. I think it means a lot to them. And, it's kind of along the lines of what you asked Nick today on our call with him, just about how, I just think when you have a coach who's humble and is willing to admit a mistake and willing to improve himself, players see that and they appreciate it and they want to go play for this guy. And, when he's genuinely like that, I mean, we've seen coaches who have no humility and guys do not want to play for them. I'm not going to name names, but one of them coaches at Ohio State now. So, and I'm not talking about Ryan Day. I just think I think he's so genuinely about the team and putting himself kind of in the background and not the most important thing, that the players just really, really thrive on that.
And another part of Nick Sirianni has been like the game management stuff. And admittedly, I don't think he's been great at it at times, but man, I was so encouraged by him on Sunday in that NFC Championship game. His decision to go for it on 4th and 5, that was maybe one of my favorite decisions he's ever made. And that's not just revisionist, right? Like, if they don't get it there, you can maybe point the play call and say, well, why are you taking a shot? But I absolutely thought it was the right move to go for it.
Yeah, I did too. And especially in contrast with Dan Quinn not going for it on that 4th and 3 on the 16 with the hottest quarterback on the planet behind center. I think, it's one thing to talk about being aggressive, but it's not always the easiest thing to do in those crunch time situations. You really have to have a set to do that. And Dan Quinn didn't, and Nick did. And I'm not saying that was the difference in the game, but it was a big part of it. And, who knows if Washington goes for it there and they get 7, or they get the first down and then get 7. I love that call as well. It's not the play I expected on 4th and 5, but
They go to it though. I mean,
yeah,
that's been kind of their chain mover, which is not the way most offenses would draw it up. But when you have AJ Brown and the quarterback is best at throwing that ball, I get a higher percentage play than for most teams.
yeah, couldn't agree more. It was something else. And I was in the studio and I saw the result on my computer screen before I saw the play. And I'm sitting next to Jaws. He's like, no, what are they doing? What are they doing? I said, oh, they're going to get it. He still hasn't figured out that I'm seeing the plays on my laptop before we see him on the monitor. But
he thinks he's working with Nostradamus.
He probably does. Rube Stradamus. But yeah, it was one of Nick's boldest calls, and it was huge, absolutely huge.
Yeah, and I think honestly, his personal nature probably leans a little more conservative.
Yeah,
in those moments, I thought the last Super Bowl he got a little too conservative. So to see him buck that in a big moment, it means a lot, because we know that, like, in general, I think the Eagles want to be an aggressive team, and they have playmakers, right? You have AJ Brown try to get the first down, and that's not to say that he would frame it, if he didn't go for it, like, we're aggressive because we trust our defense. And you're allowed to trust your defense, but in a game where you think you're going to have to put up points, I like that decision.
Yeah, and you can tell the players loved it. They love that he gives them that, he has that trust in them and that faith in them that they're gonna execute, and they did.
Yeah, he's just a good fit with this team and with their structure, right? Like the Eagles, they have a GM that has a lot of sway in things that some GMs don't always have sway in. And I think that comes from ownership as well. So you need a coach that's willing to go along with that, which is why, like, all the talk of Bill Belichick and their interest in him was a little confusing, because, like, the whole structure of the franchise would have to change. So a guy like Nick Sirianni makes a lot of sense, and he's willing to do the things that the organization wants to do. And, like, that's not a bad thing. This organization, for the most part, knows what it's doing. And I think Nick's been able to kind of tote the line of falling in line, but also bring his own stuff to it. And yeah, look, I think at times he's deserved criticism, but if we went through all that, it's now time to say, yeah, he's done a really nice job.
Yeah, and I'm curious how he'll coach a week from Sunday and how aggressive he'll be in those kind of situations. Yeah, certainly curious to see how that goes. I'm going to guess he's going to be more aggressive than he was in Arizona.
Yeah, I would think so. All right, you got anything else on Nick, or can we move on a little bit?
I looked this up, so I may as well. It took me a while to look it up. He's one of only 3 coaches in history to get to 2 Super Bowls in his first 4 years. The others are Joe Gibbs with Washington and Mike Tomlin, who won one and lost one, and hasn't been to one since. He's been there 18 years now. So I think his 2 were in his first 4 years as opposed to first 3 years. So he's been to none in 14 years. We'll see how long they stick with him. But it speaks a lot about. I mean, it's hard to get to a Super Bowl. It's hard to get to one. I mean, Eagles went to one of the first 50, right? 04 or 80 and 04. So 2 of the first 52 or whatever it was. 3 of the last 8. It's not easy to do.
Yep, and Nick's been a lot. He's doing a lot right now, and man, if he wins this Super Bowl, he's moving up the list of Eagles' greatest coaches pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to go Greasy Neal, but those guys. But you get to 3 and you win 1, and or you get to 2 and you win 1. Obviously, Doug won in 17. I mean, Doug's weird because he had a losing record. Like, how do you, but I mean, he did something that no other coach here has ever done. Andy won the most games, won the most playoff games, but never, I mean, gosh, Nick's been to more Super Bowls than Andy as Eagles coach. I think that's a story for a week from Monday. We'll kind of just take stock of where Nick fits in. I mean, you have to look at, like, the best coaches in Philly sports history, and where does he line up?
All right, we have something fun coming up on Friday, everyone. McGillen's Old Ale House Friday at 7:30 p.m. A live playoff Q&A. Ashlyn Sullivan, Barrett Brooks, Rube, and myself. I'm excited for this one. It's going to be pretty wild out there at McGillen's. We've done a couple of these Q&As so far. I think this one is going to top them all.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to McGillen's on a few occasions. I've seen it really crowded. I know what that place can get like. It's going to be a lot of fun on Friday.
Stingers was pretty crowded.
Mm-hmm.
They've all been fun. So yeah, come on out, and it's going to be I mean, we'll be flying to New Orleans 2 days later, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of a nice little send off for us.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have my bags packed before I get there. I don't know what I'm going to pack. I have to think about this.
I forgot about that. I have to pack, don't I?
Yeah, you're going. Yeah, you got to pack.
Yeah, good point.
We talked to Nick Sirianni on Tuesday afternoon. Any big takeaways from what he said?
Actually, I was torn which question to ask, and I was glad Zach Berman asked it at the end. He talked about just spending this week doing a lot of the install, doing a lot of the once you get down there, I mean, they're going to practice, but there's so many distractions, so many media obligations. There's so much going on that it's really important to get down there and have a lot of that stuff done, the install and a lot of the prep. So they're going to practice. We don't know exactly what days yet. I'm guessing Thursday, Friday, Saturday they'll practice.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be.
That's what they did 2 years ago. So Nick's a creature of habit. But yeah, he said a lot of that's going to be done before we get there, just because there's so many demands on our time down there, and you want to get a really good start on it. And so that was interesting to me.
Yeah, and it's kind of very similar to what they did in 22, and it because of that, it's very different than like a mid-season bye week where you do a ton of self-scout and then you prepare for the next game. That's not really what this is. This is a lot of install, a lot of preparing for the opponent, and then like kind of doubling down on it in that week at the location.
Yeah, and they're still in their comfort zone. They're not in a hotel. They're going to be at the NovaCare or at the Link, and it's definitely an environment where you can get a lot more done than down there.
You asked Nick about turnover margin.
And these numbers are just staggering. I'm just sitting here texting Dave like I mean, it's unbelievable. They're plus 27 since the bye week. That's 33 takeaways and 7 turnovers over a 16-game span. It's like the fourth most. It's the fourth most takeaways in a 16-game span. I spent all day on this. They're plus 15 in their last 5 games. They're 15 takeaways and no turnovers. I mean, these numbers are unprecedented. And I thought Nick was really
10 in the playoffs.
Plus 10 in the playoffs with 10 takeaways, obviously, and no turnovers. Because if you don't have any in the last 5 games, you pretty much are guaranteed to not have any in the last 3 games. I mean, their last turnover was 6 games ago. And, Jalen Hurts has 1 interception in his last 330 pass attempts. I mean, these numbers are bonkers. And the thing I like most is that they've had 18 different players force a turnover, 15 forced fumbles and 18 total, from Nolan Smith to Will Shipley. I mean, it's really something. We saw a good chunk of that on Sunday. Oren Burks, who just hasn't been playing that much until lately, he's got 4 forced fumbles. We just started playing. And I think one of them was on special teams early in the year before Nakobe got hurt. But it's been such a group effort. And I thought Nick was really good talking about it and just talking about what goes into that and how you need a really fit team to be able to play like that. Because if you're not going to have you see guys getting to the ball in numbers, and they're just more physical and faster and quicker and more athletic than the guys with the football. And you're going to have a good chance to punch it out in those cases. If the ball carries the fourth quarter and the ball carrier's tired, and a fresh Oren Burks comes out or Zach Bond or whoever it is and smacks at the ball, Cooper, you have a good chance to get that ball. It's been such a big part of what they do. 32-2 now under Nick when they're +1 or better. And the one loss the recent one was Washington when they had 5 takeaways, and then the Chiefs in 21. They lost that game, and the Chiefs are 32-0. The Chiefs have won 37 straight games when they've won the turnover margin. So it's going to be a real interesting battle from that standpoint. But it's really become such a huge part of what they do, and they're so good at it. And it's 2 completely different skills, protecting the ball and forcing turnovers, and they're just good at both of them. And that kind of fosters complementary football that we talk about all the time.
Yeah, the only thing they have in common is that they emphasize it. And
yeah.
I do roll my eyes sometimes when coaches just completely dismiss the idea that there's some luck involved in turnovers, because there just is. Like, it's an oblong shaped ball. Like, it's going to bounce weird some ways, but a lot of it comes out in the wash, and you can influence it in some ways. So I give them a lot of credit for it. I thought one of the coolest things that Nick said is that Patrick Dolan, their video guy, they had him cut up every single peanut punch from Charles Tillman's career and showed it to the team. He had 44 career forced fumbles.
Incredible.
And like, they even have on their in the Eagles, I don't know if we ever even talked about this, in Eagles Auditorium, they have these giant banners above the stage there that the players see every day. One of them is like their 4 or 5 ways to protect the football, and the other one is ways to get it out. And up there, they even have peanut punch. It's something they emphasize. And you see Zach Bond, like, he stalks the receiver the whole way, Diami Brown, and just like, he's not going to make the tackle there. He's not even there to make the tackle. He's there to punch the football out. They're so good at that. Another element is when a player's getting up. Nick Sirianni explained that, like, the ball is a little looser when you're trying to get up off the ground. And they were really good. They got Eckler in this game with it.
Yeah, they did. And he used poor Quez Watkins as an example of that from a few years ago, getting up and getting stripped, because it's hard to have both hands on the ball when you're getting up. I mean, you're probably, using one hand to help you get some balance. But they spend so much time on it, and they have it, they're so detailed on it. And I thought Nick was really good. Nick doesn't give a lot of stuff away when he talks to us, but I thought he was really, really interesting talking about the different ways they emphasize it and what goes into it. Yeah,
it's fascinating, and it's really the most important stat of the season is the way they've eliminated all the takeaways.
Well, 2,500 rushing yards by the running back is pretty important too. But yeah, you're right.
I would argue it's more important because it's a stat that encompasses both sides of the football.
Yeah, I agree. I was just being a smartass.
Yeah. Okay.
That never happens.
You're being a smartass, but you still agree with me?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to get that on record there. I asked Nick about his personal adversity coming into the season, because he always talks about how important it is to overcome stuff as a team. But in those moments, his team's looking at him. They can hear some of the noise. They know that the owner thought about firing him. Like, everyone's aware of it. There's not anyone in that building who's got horse blinders on. Like, everyone knows the deal. The way he came through that, it has to teach his team something.
Yeah, I thought he gave you a really good answer too. And I thought he was going to just kind of shrug it off and, yeah, I don't think about that. That's outside noise. But it's obviously something that he's aware of, that the way he handles adversity is going to be, it's going to make an impression on every single player in that building. And if you're humble and you own up to your mistakes and work, he said, I can't ask these guys to do all the work to fix their mistakes if I'm not doing it myself. And man, players will see right through you if you're not. And yeah, I think they really appreciate it.
Yeah, and the other element of that he mentioned was letting players know that you can't let a lot of the extra criticism affect you in negative ways, which, like, obviously there was real adversity. They thought about firing this dude and then brought him back. But outside of that, there are a lot of people criticizing him, saying he wasn't fit for the job, all that kind of stuff. You can't worry about that part of it. Like, you have to worry about doing enough to keep your job and then getting better at it without worrying about what you or I or whoever else on the TV has to say about him. I think that is an important trait to have.
You just called him that dude. called a head coach going to the Super Bowl that dude might be a little disrespectful.
I think it's the opposite. I think it's very respectful because he is that dude.
Okay, that dude. No, yeah, I totally agree, and I'm just impressed with how he's handled. That's not an easy thing to do, and you're not just trying to save your job. You're trying to reverse a trend that saw you lose 6 of your last 7 games last year, and a team that's looking at you like, how are we gonna take the next step? How are we gonna move on from this? And yeah, he's not in the top 5 for Coach of the Year. I'm not sure why. I think people just don't like him. I think the people that vote just don't like him. But I put him in my top 5.
I think there's also a thought that he's doing the most with the most. And a lot of times it goes to like a surprise team that comes out of nowhere, which is why Andy doesn't win it every year.
Andy hasn't gotten it since I think 2006 I think 2006. That was the year Donovan got hurt and Jeff Garcia took him to the playoffs. I had Andy on my ballot too. I just think it's ridiculous that he's never even in contention for it. But anyway, that's another conversation. And we'll get all that stuff, I guess, Monday, right? Thursday night down at
next Thursday, NFL Honors.
NFL Honors, so Thursday night. But yeah, I've just been really impressed with Nick every step of the way this year.
Some other things from Sirianni's presser on Tuesday. No real update injury-wise. Not a shock there. Nothing on Brandon Graham, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens. Kind of in a we'll see mode with Brandon Graham. Now, I think we'll find out on Thursday. I mean, if they activate his practice window, then there's a shot.
Yeah.
I would think that if there's any chance he plays in the Super Bowl, you'd want to give him as much runway as possible. So you would think that means at least activating his practice window this week.
Yeah, nothing to lose there. You worry about him aggravating. I don't know a lot about these injuries and whether he could put himself, at additional risk to make the injury worse. Although if he's thinking I'm not playing it next year anyway, maybe that's not a factor. I just if they do it, I hope it's for the right reasons and that they really feel he can help this team than just taking a roster spot to be, a cheerleader, which I don't think BG would even do.
I don't either, but I also like the emotional boost it would give this team to have him on the field. This is not something I would normally say. I think that might almost be worth it.
Yeah, those emotional boosts scare me because then when that wears off, they're always talking about even keel and saying, approaching every game the same. I don't know. I'd want him to be able to help this team and be able to use his arms and have some strength there. And I just don't know if that's the case. I hope so. I love the guy. I hope it works out.
As far as Landon and Cam Jurgens, I would think these are two of the toughest dudes in the world. They would have to literally get in their way and stop them from being on the field Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, and I don't think either one is a really. I mean, Cam was close to starting. I think 2 weeks he'll be fine. I don't know about Landon's injury, but I can't imagine he would be able to play. So I think they'll be full strength there on the O-line.
As long as they have one of them, they'll be in good shape. You just need one of them to play.
Yeah, 2 of them would be good. Tyler Steen played well at left guard, so good for him.
Potentially their starting right guard next year.
Could be.
Anything else from Sirianni? He was talking about the rule where the referee could award a score. He said he was aware of that. It's something he learned a few years ago. He even mentioned that he was asking the referee or the official on the sideline about the rule when that was happening. I'd like to know the timeline of all that if it was brought up to him first, but that's pretty cool if he brought that up to the official first.
Yeah, he said that he'd become aware of it, I guess, in San Diego when he was coaching there. I didn't know about the rule. I think it's pretty cool. I think it makes sense. And I kind of wanted to see it happen. It would have been pretty neat.
Yeah, it's never happened in the NFL.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The other thing he was asked about Jalen's straitjacket comment. If you didn't hear that, he was asked about Sirianni, and he said he's done a great job. I guess he let me out of my straitjacket today, huh? Or something like that. Nick said he thought Jalen was just having some fun there, which he was. But I also think it's a little indicative of what they've asked the quarterback to do this year and how he's handled it. It's been a scaled back passing offense for a lot of this year. They haven't asked Jalen to do a ton. And I think if Jalen wants to peacock after a game like that, let him.
Yeah, I would agree. And look, he's a quarterback. He wants to throw the football. And I think he appreciates that they're winning without doing it a ton. But I think he enjoyed – it's not like he had these huge numbers. He still only threw 28 times. But there was some down-the-field stuff, and it was more than they had been throwing. So I think that gave a nice little glimpse to what he really thinks, even though he won't say it.
Yeah, and I don't even think he's like someone who desperately wants to throw the ball. I think he wants everyone to know that he can.
That's fair. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think he's totally on board with being a run-first team.
Yeah, I mean he should be, because it's gotten them to where they are. But yeah, I mean it's crazy to me that, I mean, there was a lot of people saying he can't throw, and I mean I think he's proven that over the years. And whether he would be as effective as he was Sunday, I didn't know, because we hadn't seen it in a while. The Pittsburgh game he was, but I mean he's been a good, efficient quarterback. Good to great, throughout his career, at least his career under Nick. And his rookie year, too. He threw the ball down the field a ton his rookie year. That's all he did. So, yeah, I'm sure, as much as he says the noise, he doesn't hear the noise, I'm sure he does. Everybody does.
It's not lost to me either that two of the best games I've seen him play are in the Super Bowl and now an NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
He's a big game guy.
He really is. He really is. And I mean, he was incredible. That Super Bowl was the best he's ever played. I mean, the fumble obviously was really bad, but and probably cost him the game. But other than that, I mean, he threw the ball, beautifully. And yeah. And by the way, Eagles quarterbacks have not thrown an interception at the LIX since 2010. Vic against the Packers, and that's the only one since 2003
in the playoffs.
Yes, obviously. And it's crazy because Donovan threw 3 interceptions and Coy threw 1 in that 2003 NFC Championship game against the Panthers, and they've only thrown 1 at the LIX since that game. And that, I guess, that was the first playoff game, or I guess the 03, I guess the Packers overtime game would have been the first playoff game ever at the LINQ, right? So those might be the only. I don't think Donovan threw a pick in that game. He might have. Anyway, it's kind of crazy just how amazing Jalen's been not turning the ball over. And before the bye, I mean, a before the bye, after the bye story is inevitable, because just so much changed, including Jalen's turnovers and so many other things too. But it is remarkable, and he is a big game guy, and that's why I think they have a really good chance to win a week from Sunday.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
We are back on the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan with Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. It's question time. We got a ton of them. A lot of guys and gals celebrating during the game, after the game. Inbox got flooded. If you want to send us an email, it's eagleeye@NBCUni. That's NBCUNI.com. QR code is on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. Let's just get into it. First one from Ben. Super Bowl, baby. Can't wait for the daily pods.
That's it?
That's it. Just someone excited. Ben's excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, and it's I just feel so lucky we're able to do that and just bring you The Eagles media stuff, like not last year, 2 years ago, everything was so late. Like we were doing the podcast late at night, but you guys will have them a lot earlier this time because the Eagles are practicing and doing media late morning, early afternoon. So we'll have them to you by mid-afternoon, I would think.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. Reuben and I are now in the process of like figuring out where everything is in relation to one another down in New Orleans. We're kind of coming up with a plan. Where's Radio Row? Where's the Eagles Hotel? It's fun. It like makes it a lot more real when you're like finalizing these plans and getting ready.
Booking flights, booking hotels, figuring out the best coffee shop to write in all day. Yeah, the important stuff.
Yeah, New Orleans. I've been in New Orleans quite a few times. I've never been in New Orleans this long. A little nervous about being in New Orleans for 8 days.
Why? What could possibly go wrong?
It's a lot of time in New Orleans. Fun city, though. All right, next one is from Danny. Dave and Rube, I'm sending this email from Virginia at 6 a.m. on Monday morning after the Eagles NFC Championship win, and it's safe to say my voice is thoroughly gone. Very excited.
That's good to me.
I've had a deep suspicion / hope all season that they would make it to the Super Bowl and win this time. Redemption is the word I keep coming back to. Think about it. The Eagles win their first ever Super Bowl, but they do it over one of the best dynasties of the game. Classic underdog Phillies story. Now they have a shot to do it again against a team that beat them 2 years ago in order to rob them of the first ever three-peat. Okay, here's the question. We know Kellen Moore talked earlier in the year about setting up tendencies only to break them in crucial moments. Do you feel like they have kept play calling slightly vanilla, slightly dialed back this year as needed, knowing if they could dial it up in key moments? Is there anything to this theory that the play calling and offensive production might look similar to what we saw last night? If that's the case, it's hard for me to think the Eagles aren't strongly favored to win it all. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see wholesale like craziness, but there's no question that there's stuff that they haven't shown. I mean, every team saves stuff. Every team that's got a shot at doing what they're doing. They'll hold back on their best stuff and their best plays and really good stuff that they believe in, and they won't show it, and then they'll have it. But the Chiefs will do that too. So it goes both ways. I mean, we saw it Sunday. Dallas Goedert 2 jet sweeps when he never ever run one before.
He had 1 carry in his career.
Yeah, so that's not a huge thing, but the first one got him 9 yards. So I think you will see some different stuff.
Yeah, it was just encouraging to see them have a wrinkle there. And there are going to be some. I don't know if you like necessarily hold them thinking that if you get to the Super Bowl, you'll run it, but there are things they haven't used. And there are things they'll have in their back pocket. I mean, heck, like the most famous play in Eagles history was held on for the Super Bowl. They ended up breaking it out. Philly special I'm talking about, of course. But
I think everyone knows what play you're talking about.
But then we also saw like that corn dog play from Andy Reid and the Chiefs in the last Super Bowl the Eagles played in. Like, teams will have those plays that they'll break out in a big game, and it takes guts to call them. But if it works, they end up being these legendary moments.
Yep. Yeah, I think we'll see a couple of those.
Yeah. It's exciting.
It is. Can't wait.
The next question is from Rick. Love the show. It was my number 1 podcast for 2024 and by far my favorite. That was a great question to JP Finley about who would be most likely to be penalized for unsportsmanlike contact. Way for AJ to bait Lattimore. Too bad the 2-point conversion didn't work. My question is, who do you think is more likely to return for the Super Bowl? Britton Covey or Brandon Graham, and who would make the bigger impact?
Well, I would say Britton Covey is more likely because they already opened his practice window. I think he's more likely to play, but I'm not sure they would make a change at this point. Cooper's been fine bringing back punts and handling both responsibilities, and Covey hasn't played in a long time, and he's only played 2 games since like week 4. So I'd really be surprised if they put him out there.
I actually think it would make some sense. If he can go, I think you'd trust him back there, and it would take something off Cooper's plate. He's going to have a lot on him in this game. I think it would be worth having Covey there. Unfortunately, it would mean you'd have to cut Paris Campbell, who's been with them all year, put him back in the practice squad, let him come to New Orleans with you. I think I'd be interested in doing that.
Yeah, I'd be concerned that he just hasn't played much. He hasn't returned many punts. I mean, he's pretty solid at it. I'm comfortable with Cooper back there.
Yeah, not that I'm uncomfortable with it. I think I would make the switch if Covey's ready.
Okay.
BG, like as far as impact, then would you say Brandon Graham?
Well, if he plays, that means he's healthy enough to make an impact. I mean, it's easy to forget how well he was playing when he got hurt. I mean, he was playing at a really high level. So if he's healthy enough to play at that level, then he would make a bigger impact. But I just don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, and it's also probably unfair to expect him to come back after a long layoff and just play at that level again.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay, next question is from Owen. If someone told you to rank these 5 things could happen in the beginning of the season, how would you rank them from most to least likely?
I'm gonna have to take notes here. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Here, I'll drop it in the in our notes here, so you don't have to type.
All right.
Okay. So number 1, Saquon runs for 2,000 yards.
Just in the Super Bowl? Oh, for the season.
The season. Yeah. Number 2, Zach Bond is a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. Number 3, Eagles make the Super Bowl. Number 4, they set the franchise record with a 10-game win streak. Number 5, the Eagles have the number 1 defense in the league. Obviously, all 5 of those seemed pretty improbable to start the season. He says from most to least likely. So which of these is the most likely?
I guess for me, the most likely would be a 10-game winning streak, just because when you looked at the schedule, I mean, they did have some, middle of the season looked easier, looked more manageable. I would say that's probably what I would have picked as most likely.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that.
Just by default.
Yeah, I'll go with setting a franchise record with 10 wins, which is still crazy.
Yeah.
What would be number 2?
Well, I know what number 5 is. Number 2, boy, the number 1 defense. I mean, after last year with all the changes, that would not be very high. I might say Saquon 2000.
I think the Eagles making the Super Bowl.
You think that would be more likely than Saquon? Because we've seen Saquon play at a really elite level in 18 and in whatever his other good year was, 22.
Elite level, but still like 700 yards off 2,000.
But now you have this O-line. He's never had a good O-line. You have these weapons. You have this quarterback. He's not out there playing with Daniel Jones.
There's 9 2,000-yard seasons in the history of the NFL.
Yeah. The Eagles had only been to 3 Super Bowls in the history of the NFL. I guess making the Super Bowl probably would have seemed more likely at that point than 2,000 yards. I think those two are close. I mean, we knew they'd be good, and they were only 2 years removed from a Super Bowl,
and they're really talented. Like,
it was just the way last year ended. How are they going to deal with it? How are they going to react to it? How are they going to build back up from that? I'll go along with you. I'll go Super Bowl next, and then Saquon, which leaves number 1 defense and Zach Bond finalists for Player of the Year.
Yeah, I think 4 would be the number 1 defense.
Yeah,
which is shocking in a way because of how bad they were last year. But you're bringing in a quality defensive coordinator, a guy who's done it for a long time. It's a little surprising because like them getting to the Super Bowl isn't surprising. The surprising thing about it is that it's been led by this incredible defense. Whereas like all offseason we're talking about, if this defense can be average, the offense can kind of lead the way.
And not only that, but like you had 2 rookies starting. Well, at that point it was Avante, but we knew Cooper G would eventually be the slot. You had so many guys in new positions, and including Zach Bond, Nakobe, Nolan Smith, as the year went on, had to play more and more, who didn't do anything last year. There's just so many new guys. And expanded role for Jalen Carter. We didn't know if Slay would hold up in his 12th season, 34 years old. So yeah, I thought that Vic was a great hire, but number one defense, I didn't see that coming.
If I look distracted there, like 35 deer just ran through my backyard.
Really?
Yeah.
You counted them?
It was an estimation.
Okay. It's like a
I don't know,
walkthrough.
there's something going on outside. I'm a little nervous. And then obviously the least likely was Zach Bond being a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, we thought this guy would be a special teamer this year. So, I mean, yeah, it's been unbelievable.
Yeah. I love talking to that guy. And like, he'll be like, you're talking about like all pro and Pro Bowl and defensive player. He's just like shakes his head. He's like, I just can't believe this. Like, I can't believe we're having this conversation.
He's in awe of it, but he's also like really confident.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool to see the dichotomy with him because, yeah, he's amazed at like, here he is, but he always believed in himself. And I talked to him after the NFC Championship game. It was clear, like, he was so confident going into that game. He like, there's not even 1 ounce of him that thinks this season is anything of a fluke.
Yeah, that's true. I sure don't feel that way.
I mean, you do it for this long, it's not a fluke, but it's just so cool that he's not even letting that self-doubt creep in.
Yeah. This is an all-time Eagles linebacker season. They've had some good ones, not lately, but William Thomas and Berge, the late Bill Berge and Seth. They've had some really good. Chuck Bednarik was pretty good going back a little bit, but I mean, what he's been able to do, he makes like 2 or 3 splash plays every game. It's crazy how active he is, how instinctive he is, how physical he is. He's got the complete package. And it's great to see him get this kind of recognition without anybody 4 months ago having any clue who the heck he is. So that's rare. And he deserves every bit of it.
Yeah. I saw today, I think Bobby Wagner is going to the Pro Bowl in his place. All these things make me laugh. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I also saw a couple weeks ago, Jordan Mailata wearing a Zach Bond t-shirt with the nickname Bald Eagle on it. Everyone calls him the Bald Eagle, which I like quite a bit.
Yeah.
If Lane had his chance to trademark that and he didn't. So now it's going to the other Bald Eagle.
Man, that was a big misstep by Lane. How about Lane going to his 3rd Super Bowl?
Yeah.
First Eagle ever to do that. I guess Jake, and I guess
Lovato
too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And BG's going. How about, there's something we don't really talk about. You did a story on this, but the greatest center in history and a 6-time Pro Bowl interior lineman retire and you go to the Super Bowl. That's like,
you have a 2,000-yard rusher.
Yeah.
After you just lost the best offensive lineman in team history.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Oh, I looked this up, by the way, and I've always wondered about this. Who was the last running backs coach to coach 3 straight different Pro Bowl running backs? So Miles in 22, DeAndre Swift last year, and Saquon this year. Now, the Ravens from 07 to 09 had 3 different Pro Bowl running backs. It was like LaRon McClain, Ray Rice, and somebody else. But they changed running back coaches in the middle. So it was Tony Nathan the first year in 07 and Wilbert Montgomery, ironically, the next 2. But the last guy to do it was a guy named John Mazur with the Bills in the 60s. And John Mazur ended up coaching with Vermeil with the Eagles in the 70s and then ended up settling in South Jersey in like Hainesport in Burlington County, where he spent his last years. He passed away like 10 years ago, but a really fascinating guy. He was a Marine, fought in Korea, but he's the last running backs coach before Jamal Singleton. I always pronounce his name wrong. How do you pronounce his name?
Jamal.
So he's the first one in like 50 years to coach a different Pro Bowl running back in 3 straight years.
And it's crazy too, because Singleton replaced Deuce, who like big shoes to fill, and he's done a really nice job.
Yeah. And Saquon, you can tell, it's fun watching them work together before games. They're right in front of us by the goalpost. you can tell Saquon just thinks the world of him. And you did a nice story on that. But yeah, I think he's a really elite coach.
Next question from Pete. Ruben Dave, love the pod. In fact, I don't listen to any podcasts, just music, but I make an exception for you guys. Awesome stuff. My question.
Appreciate it.
Appear to get a lot of favorable calls from the refs. Seems like everyone is familiar with this narrative now. I'm not a big conspiracy guy, but it does seem fishy. Do you think there's any legitimacy to the claims that the Chiefs benefit from the NFL wanting them to succeed? Is there something to this? We got a bunch of questions about this, by the way. I just chose Pete's.
Yeah, and like I don't feel like I'm qualified to answer because I just don't see that many Chiefs games because we're either in the studio or doing pregame when they're playing. A couple of Monday night games, I guess I've watched. So I hear it and I'm aware of it. I don't buy that kind of stuff. I don't think they're sitting around saying like telling refs go make the Chiefs win. I think they're a really good team.
Yeah, and look, I think some of this is now stemming. Eagles fans are looking back at the last Super Bowl and that James Bradbury call, and it was unfortunate and all that. But I think the big thought is that Mahomes gets all these calls. Sometimes good players get calls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something to think about as you enter this game. I think there's going to be a lot of angst from fans worried about it. Yeah, there's not really much you can do about it.
Yeah, just try to play a clean game. And, Nick's got his challenges and can't use them for everything. But, I'm not that concerned about it.
Reginald, can we put the issue of Jalen and the passing game to bed? He'll probably never be a 300 yards a game passer, but he doesn't have to be, and he does so many other things. With this team, it's all about winning. It's a simple plan, and it works for me.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah, shut me up. Yeah.
As long as it's there when they need it, which it has been.
Well, it was. It hadn't always been, but it was in the biggest moment.
Right.
And that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question is from Brent. Just wanted to thank you both, Dave and Reuben. Brent from Ontario, Canada. I'm 45 years old and been an Eagles fan since I was 10. Randall Cunningham was the reason I became a diehard Eagles fan. I never thought they were going to win a Super Bowl. The 2017 ride was amazing. That team was just so locked in and finished the deal. Once you get that taste in your mouth, you want it again. Losing against the Chiefs stung so bad, and that Bradbury flag killed me. All I wanted was Jalen and the Eagles offense to get one last chance. My question, what I see as the biggest issue versus the Chiefs is Steve Spagnuolo's blitzing and his different blitz packages. How will the Eagles offense decide to game plan for those blitzes and pressures? The Eagles line will see. Yeah,
he's one of the best. I think him and Todd Bowles, who are both former Eagles defensive backs coaches, oddly, he's a master at designing blitzes, exotic blitzes. They come from everywhere. I think Jalen's been pretty good for the most part this year with making plays against the blitz, and he's just got to get rid of the ball, and he's got great receivers. I think he's got to trust the underneath guys, which I think he's done a good amount. Look, when you run the ball 50 times a game and throw it 20 times, you're not getting blitzed that much just because you're not throwing the ball that much. But I think he has been pretty good at it, a lot better than last year. And it's coming, and you just got to look that the O-line is going to be there's no O-line you'd rather have against a Spags defense than this one, presumably healthy. And I like their chances. I think that, Jalen looks at blitzes as an opportunity to make plays, not something that's going to benefit the defense. And they'll get him one or two times, but he's got to make more plays than they do against the blitz. And he's been pretty good at it this year.
Yeah, I think they've done a good job of giving him the answers in this offense to combat the blitz. And I think that was a really big issue. I mean, heck, last year, Todd Bowles again in the playoffs got to him and it was bad. And they just didn't seem to have any answers. This year, they have some answers. He was blitzed on Sunday in the NFC Championship game. This is from PFF. 54.8% of his dropbacks on those, he was 10 for 16, 141 yards. So, he made them pay for it. He got a big chunk of yardage, more yards when he was blitzed than when he wasn't. So, I think teams are still going to try to blitz him. I think Spags is going to try to bring pressure on him and try to give them some looks they haven't seen and give them some exotic blitzes. But I think going into this game, you feel so much better about their answers against the blitz than you did before this season.
Yeah, and that was might have been the first question we asked Kellen at his first press conference was, where do you start with teams blitzing Jalen? And I think he's done a really good job at it. And having Dallas is so big, against blitzes, having him healthy, and he's having a terrific postseason. So, Jalen just has that trust level when he's under pressure to find 88 and get him the ball.
Last one here from Chris. Dave and Rube, love your show. I listen to every episode. No question, but just a suggestion on how Eagles fans should celebrate the Birds going to the Super Bowl. I just made a donation to the Eagles Autism charity, the Eagles Autism Foundation, in recognition of Joe Shane. Would love if you suggested that to all your listeners.
It's a great foundation they have that Jeff Lurie founded a long time ago. They do incredible work, and they've raised a ton of money to research autism and study it and look for and fund local schools and facilities for autistic kids. You haven't done the autism challenge yet, have you?
I've not.
I got to get you out to that. It's a really nice event. They have a bike ride, they have a walk, they have a 5K run, and they all finish inside the link. You get to finish right at the 50-yard line, and there's a lot of kids' activities there. It's a great day. I think it's in the spring, I believe. I think it's in May. Yeah. So I couldn't recommend it more. It's a lot of fun. All the players are there and coaches, and it's a really nice day. If you get some good weather. A few years ago, it just poured all day, but everybody had a good time anyway. But definitely consider doing it, and I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, if you want to donate to a good cause and make fun of Joe Shane in the process, feel free. All right, that's all we have today. If you want to send us an email, it's eagle-eyed-NBC-uni. That's NBCUNI.com. This is where I tell you, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Give you one more plug. That's Friday at 7:30, McGillen's Old Ale House, Eagles Playoff Live Q&A. Myself, Rube, Ashlyn Sullivan, and Barrett Brooks. Going to be a lot of fun. Come and hang out. Rube, any final words?
See everybody at McGillen's.
All right. Take care, everyone. This has been Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.